All right, for everybody jumping on here, we're going to get started in about 30 seconds. Do me a favor while we're getting started. By the way, for those of you just joining us, no, I'm not in my studio today. I got stuck in an airport hotel. So I mentioned it a second ago, but I apologize for my audio in advance. I'm really looking forward to this particular panel today. Definitely have a fantastic panel to discuss scaling a payments business in 2025 and beyond. Do me a favor, though, real quick, and just over in the chat box there, just give me a simple yes if you can hear me and see me okay right now. Just trying to make sure we're good. Again, a little bit of a different setup today. Awesome. Great. Okay. It looks like I'm all set. Everybody can hear me. So fantastic. All right. So one question, and then I guess we'll do two. I'll do two questions. And then I'm going to introduce our panelists or have them introduce themselves actually in just a minute. So here's my two questions. You can put these in the chat box. Number one, how many years have you been in the payments industry? So just kind of trying to get a feel for the audience a little bit for our panelists today. So just put a number in the chat box. How many years have you been in the payments industry? 27, Joanne, 26, Nate, 4 years, Joanne, 15, David, 15, Steven, 27, Caleb, 13, Adam, 7. Oh, hey, Steven, there's 30 plus. I like seeing that. Dave with 2. Great. So we have some people that are a little newer to the industry. That's awesome. Jeffrey with 30. Susie with 27. Eddie, 1 month. All right. The winner for the newest to the industry, Eddie, you're on the right panel. So thanks for joining us today. Lenny with 27. Many here. I'm not going to read them all. But okay, it looks like we got a good mix today, but I think definitely trending more towards experience. Looks like many of you have a lot of experience here, so that's great. Tim says 150 years, but really it's 27. That's what it feels like. It's 150. So that's great. I love it, Tim. That's awesome. Good to see you, sir. Great. And again, some new people. Okay, next question. I want to know how you would identify your position in the payments industry, and you got to pick one of these three. Okay, so three options. You are either an agent, which kind of means you could be an individual ISO, but just, you're operating and you're the only one making sales in your organization. Maybe you have an assistant or something, but very small operation there, either individual or maybe you've got an assistant or a small team helping you with installs, but you consider yourself an agent, or you would consider yourself an ISO owner. So ISO owner. So you've got a small team. Maybe you've got 4 or 5 agents, maybe you've got 20 agents, maybe you've got 50 agents, but you've got agents that are out there selling, but you're primarily a sales organization. Maybe you do some of your own installs and things like that. And then the last one would be if you are a payments executive. So a payments executive would be you're a VP of sales or VP of operations or whatever, and you work at a large company. And so, you could say you're an executive, something like that. So just kind of, again, trying to get a feel for who we have on here. Oh, wow. So really, really good mix. Really good mix today. This is great. All right, good. So we've got lots of ISO owners, lots of agents. We have some executives on. Great. Awesome. Okay, good. This is a really good panel. I'm excited here. This will be a good panel discussion for all of you. So it's a good mix. All right, with that being said, let's get all of our panelists to turn on their camera and microphone. Again, for those who don't know me, my name is James Shepard, CEO at CC Sales Pro. I love putting out content like this. It's really exciting for me to just run through this. Vlad, why don't we start with you, kind of introduce yourself, and then we'll kind of go around the room here.
Oh, sure. Can you hear or see me? Just want to make sure.
Yep.
Okay, great. So I'm Vlad Sadovskiy, founder and CEO of Netevia. Netevia is a company that we're best known for as our banking services, and we're obviously a processor operating with multiple banks in the ISO space. So we're kind of a mix of both, and I guess that's what differentiates us from a lot of other players out there. And that's what makes us interesting to a lot of audiences over the last couple of years. I've been personally in the business for 30 years, so have done multiple roles, public company, private companies, etc. And currently part of the Netevia group.
Awesome. Love it. Let's see. Ben Griefer, let's go over to you there, sir.
Hey, I'm Ben Griefer, Chief Operating Officer of Maverick Payments. We're a full-service payment provider. Our focus has been on essentially a white label turnkey platform for sales organizations, ISOs, agents, ISVs who want to go to market quickly under their brand and look to leverage us kind of on the back end as their infrastructure partner.
Excellent. Let's see, Ben Ross.
You guys, can you hear me well, James?
Yep.
Perfect. Ben Ross, Chief Operating Officer of Green Payments. Our focus really is working with agents, many that are experienced, some that are new to the business, but really the ones that need the right tools, the right software, the right solutions to help sell in kind of today's world of payments. That's really where our focus is.
Love it. So, and then I'm going to have OB introduce in 1 second, but just to clarify, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a list of questions today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start each question off. We're going to go to Ben Ross. He's going to talk about how this particular trend or topic is impacting the individual agent. Then we're going to go to Ben Griefer talking more about the ISO perspective. So you're trying to build a sales organization. How does this trend impact? Then we're going to go to Vlad. Vlad's going to talk about the larger organizations and how these trends are impacting full service providers, the larger processors, the super ISOs, things of that nature. And then we're going to go to OB Rawls to give us kind of our wide angle lens to talk about bigger picture things when you look at the industry overall. So with that being said, OB, why don't you go and introduce yourself and then we'll dive into this first topic.
Okay, thanks, James. Hey, everybody, I'm OB Rawls, and I've been in the payment space for over 40 years. For the last 3 years, I've been an investor and advisor to payment companies. I've spent the majority of my time operating ISOs and payment structures and managed equipment sales. I was the CEO of iPayment. We sold it to PaySafe. And for the last year and a half, I invested in and have been a member of Wellesley Hills Financial, which is a boutique payments and fintech investment firm headquartered in Boston. Happy to be here, James.
Awesome. Well, thank you all, first of all, very much for joining us. I know we're all super busy, but it's really cool to kind of carve out an hour here and just try to provide some value to the industry. So the first topic for today probably is the most obvious trend, and that is that the idea of the standalone payments experience for the merchant is slowly transitioning away and moving to more of an integrated thing. So to make this practical for our audience, we're talking about a standalone credit card terminal that does nothing but kind of process in-person transactions, or we're talking about a virtual terminal that, we log in on the website, we key in card information, and so we have these two solutions. So what we're saying is, it would seem that the industry is, well, we know the industry is moving away from that and towards more of an integrated payment approach. And so the question is, and we're starting here with Ben Ross, the question is, how is that trend going to accelerate in 2025? And how is that going to impact for Ben? How is that going to impact these individual experienced agents that are out in the field selling?
Sure. Thank you, James. I think the key that we see and coming into 2025 is that agents need to understand the verticals they want to go after and figure out the right solutions that fit those verticals. Because if they don't, you can't just kind of be very horizontal going after all different types of businesses and expect to just drop the same solution, the same terminal, the same even virtual terminal in that business, because each one of them is going to have kind of unique, kind of intricate solutions and software that they need to run their business. And if you don't give that to them, unfortunately, they're going to find it elsewhere. And the nature of our business traditionally was, I'm an agent, I have the relationship, I own that relationship, and that does have value. But in today's world where things move so fast and business owners need software to help them keep up, the value of the relationship only goes so far. So we believe strongly at Green Payments in an agent with the software is unbeatable. The relationship and the software will win all day long. The larger kind of platforms that are out there that purely sell software, and it's a lot of times a W-2 environment where there's a lot of turnover, and even if they're consistently there, people clearly see it as, hey, your job is to sell me, rather than your job is to advise me and get me partnered with the best solution. And so that's where we train our agents, train our partners in approaching it that way. And we're confident, as we go into 2025, that's really kind of the key way that it's going and how to approach it.
I love it. So Ben Griefer, when we think about the ISO, right, they're kind of obviously similar issues, but you're trying to build this platform, right, that services all these ISOs and white labeled. How are you guys approaching that? And what are your thoughts on this kind of transition away from these kind of really simplistic solutions?
Yeah, we've definitely seen an uptick with ISV and software, vendors out there who are integrating much more into your traditional distribution model of ISOs and agents. And what we've seen, which is really interesting, is ISVs, they don't know payments. They want to monetize payments. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to price, et cetera. And what they've done is similar to what Ben had mentioned, is partnered and work kind of alongside these. And from a distribution perspective, what we're seeing is ISOs we work with will bring them on effectively as sub-agents, teach them payments, how to sell, how to monetize, kind of hold their hand and help them go to market. Obviously their core focus is whatever their software platform is. And then the supplemental payments offering, which they're kind of leaning on this ISO for. So it's a really strong kind of tool when you piece it together that way. Because again, they don't know payments. They want to monetize payments. They want to do it obviously under their brand. And we're seeing, a lot of synergy where they're able to leverage the ISOs we're working with, who obviously know payments very well from a sales perspective.
And so Vlad, as we bring that kind of full circle, right now we get into, okay, with Super ISO, larger organization, we're really trying to scale and build, but operationally we're losing kind of the standalone terminal, the virtual terminal to some extent. We're still obviously doing that and supporting it, but how are you guys making that transition, and what do you want to share with kind of larger organizations along those lines?
So first of all, the super ISOs are in a pickle. Let's start there, and the reason is that what do they rely on for their next level of growth? And we've seen companies like Shift4 completely demolishing their ISO agent business and moving up market and selling their SkyTab solution everywhere. No matter what they buy, they
Right.
do it. The recent acquisition with where they acquired Rawls, which was somewhat of an agnostic player.
Right.
They basically demolished it, and they're moving their their customers to their SkyTab solution. So there's companies, super ISOs that are taking a stand of, we want to be the next Toast, for better or worse, and however we're gonna get it, but we're gonna be the next Toast. And then there is agnostic guys that are still trying to service the old-fashioned ISO and agent niche, and they see themselves as trying to be partnering with some software companies to try to offer these solutions to their ISOs and agents and help them choose, almost like an agent-based model that was discussed earlier. But now coming in from the ISO perspective, I don't think that this is overly successful plan, because the agents now can choose themselves of how to do it. And I don't think that larger ISOs, unless they develop certain expertise that will transition into their support structure, like a help desk or anything else like that, will be long-term successful, unless they make themselves either a super dealer or a software provider of some sort. And then there's final piece of the wholesale business of the ISOs, where the ISVs themselves, in the effort to monetize payments, they're becoming the ISOs of themselves.
Right.
And they want to distribute completely directly, and gather their own agents and their own merchants, etc. So the transition of an ISV to become an ISV ISO model is definitely happening for those scenarios. And there you basically have a conversation of whether you're partnering with an organization such as Fiserv directly or Global directly, or do you partner with companies that may be more friendlier, has a better tool set? And we're seeing the trend there. And the conversation is, if I partner with Fiserv, do I really want to be only on Fiserv? Or I partner with Global, do I really want to be with Global? Right. Or can I partner with larger organizations where it can get me access to both platforms, and I can get the best of both worlds while not losing my economics? So interesting dynamics. And then obviously there is Stripes and there is Adians of the world. They're in the world of their own, but they're coming to card present business. And the latest deal of Stripe with Freedom Pay is a testament to that.
Yeah, for sure. OB, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So when you're looking at the industry as a whole and kind of, what you've heard this feedback so far, I mean, what are you seeing in the industry as a whole? What's interesting to you right now as far as moving away from kind of standalone payments to an integrated payment world?
It's interesting, James. I can look back over 40 years of transition, in the payment space. And we've kept getting better and smarter, in our selling processes. Unfortunately, I think for the last few years, salespeople have relied on price or gimmicks or something to sell. Cash advance is the newest, or cash discounting is the newest trick in the marketplace. But as the merchants get smarter, as the products get smarter, as the world becomes smaller, if that makes sense, with the growth of Stripe, Adyen, Fiserv's Clover strategy into the marketplace. I think we have to get smarter as salespeople, and we have to figure out how we really sell value to merchants in today's world. And I think we'll talk about that a little more in one of the other questions, but it does present challenges for the agent in the field. As we move forward, we're going to have to specialize and be at the same time be a different kind of generalist as well. In understanding integrated solutions. Very hard to walk into a new merchant and sell them an Ingenico or a Verifone or a Pax or a Castles terminal and walk out the door now. So we have to get better and more professional.
One of the interesting trends OB just brought up, I think is so interesting, is that, and Ben, I'll throw this back over to you, Ben Rosser, in a minute. But like one thing I've noticed is, I agree with what you said, OB, that I feel like our whole industry, we were starting to kind of really move to integrated payments and potentially even take the lead, in that channel. And then I think cash discounting and dual pricing, in a weird way, almost set us back a little bit. I know that's almost kind of heresy to say in an audience like this, because we all made so much money on it, right? Which is like great. I'm celebrating that success as well. But at the same time, it was almost like, oh, well, wait a second. We don't have to figure out this software yet. We can go tell people that we can eliminate their processing fees. They'll even put a terminal beside their point of sale. But the trend that I'm seeing now as I talk to ISVs is they're starting to adopt that. So in a year from now, it's going to be like, well, I can have my cake and eat it too. I can have my nice integrated payment solution and dual pricing, So I think it's like that opportunity is going to go away, I think, over time. So, Ben Ross, we go back to you here. The next question and kind of a continuation of this is just complexity. So again, we look at multiple payment options now. We have, P2P, we have Venmo, Cash App, all of these things. We have crypto that's still in its infancy, but coming in. We have FedNow. We have all these different things. Then we have all this technology. And so I think, I use this example often, but I think I even did it at an event with you guys one time in person, that like when I started selling payments, you could just say, it's like, what do you do? I sell payment processing. And everybody knew what that meant. You walk down the street, you walked into a business, you gave them a terminal. Now it's like, what does that even mean anymore? Do you sell B2B? Do you sell restaurant POS? Do you, like, it can mean so many things. So I guess my question to you, Ben, is specifically when you think about the individual agent, right? What is your advice to them moving as they start planning for 2025? They're looking at this very complex payments landscape. What do they need to do?
So I think it really goes to what you said right there, which is as an independent agent, you need to focus on what you're going to be doing and make it a very clear, succinct message. Because if it is, you just sell payments or let me help you with your credit card processing, the reality is that message, most business owners, unless they're new and maybe they've only been at it for a few years,
Right.
they've been drowned out from that. And so what you need to be really focused on is saying, to your point, I sell pharmacies, or, I'm the best at bars and restaurants, or I sell, car dealerships, and I help, dealers with their credit card processing and improve the efficiency in how they operate. Something very simple, succinct, and it gets the message out there clearly. If you do that, the opportunities are there. And then you obviously need to then have the solutions to back it up and understand those solutions enough to be able to sell them and not be completely dancing and, well, I don't know, but let me bring someone else. Like, you truly need to know it, right? You don't have to be the full expert on every in and out of the solution, but you do have to understand it. And so it's what, on our end, we have training specific to solutions, not just how do you, look at a statement that matters? How do you look at pricing that matters? But really, merchants in today's world, if you're giving them a great solution, that other side of it really has fallen to the wayside. What matters is a clear, succinct message of how you're going to help them run their business and what you do.
I like it. So, Ben Griefer, as we move over to you here in the ISO, so what I'm thinking about is, okay, I'm an ISO. I have 20 agents, right? Well, these 20 agents are all going to want to sell potentially different things, different verticals, et cetera. Then I also have the operational complexity. I have to deploy this stuff or support this stuff. So what do I do as an ISO owner as I move into 2025? What are the questions I need to be asking myself, or the things I need to be thinking about as I'm planning for dealing with this new complexity?
Yeah, and it's been interesting because we've had a lot of partners come to us and feel threatened by, crypto or RTP or these various, bank transfer solutions. And ultimately, what we're doing is we're looking at them as kind of supplemental payment methods that merchants could take and accept, which ultimately increases acceptance rates. And what we're doing to help kind of our distribution is offering it through, our dashboard. So we brought ACH in-house. We've integrated with several third parties, so it's a very seamless user experience if they want to, accept these alternative payment methods. And what's really kind of cool to look at is, you know, MasterCard, for example, is extremely involved with the clearinghouse and RTP. Venmo sits on top of Visa Direct. So we don't really look at it so much as a threat. I think Visa, who has something like 4.5 billion cards issued around the world, their network and their infrastructure is so embedded with point of sales and just the various ways money moves. And ultimately, there's a lot of value in providing merchants these kind of alternative payment methods. There's also a stickiness factor and additional lines of revenue here if you can kind of pair it correctly with the core processing, which would obviously be cards. So from us, we're trying to get our distribution to kind of understand the value in it, while on the back end partnering and integrating and offering these various solutions that make it seamless from a user experience perspective, so merchants can take advantage of it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I like that. Vlad, what are your thoughts on this complexity? Obviously, I know with your organization, you have quite a bit of complexity with all the different things that you're doing, different channels. How are you dealing with that from a higher level, kind of as a large organization?
I think it's an individual decision whether you're an ICE owner or an agent, and actually the thought process applies to both type of scenarios. And we've seen a number of products that come across over the last 20 years. Cash advance being one of them, not cash discount, cash advance being one of them, and gift cards being another. Um, what I've learned is that it's very hard for certain people to adapt the new technologies and try to become a POS expert versus being a traditional terminal guy. And so the way that we looked at it, it's with those scenarios that we've looked at it, is why we started the digital banking business. And the way that we're looking at it, we understand that at some point the amount of Visa MasterCard business will be coming down in terms of volume, and in some cases it's already happening. Like for example, Zelle and Venmo took away a huge portion of the market, and now they're trying to make it come back. And in that comeback on the business side, the ISOs and agents are not included. It's just the way it is. And
Right.
so now another good example would be an Uber for restaurants, right? Uber took away 20 to 25% of the volume that was going through the restaurant
Right.
out to their platform,
Right.
right? And now us as a traditional processing reps are not getting it through the terminal or the POS. Doesn't really matter, right? So people try to do payroll. It's too complex. We try to approach it with what is the next best thing that everybody needs that is available at a complexity level that would make adoption rates big in terms of understanding on the ICO and agent side. And it's with that reason we did the banking part.
Right.
It's very easy to understand. Everybody lost a deal to a local bank where they requested to move everything, including the credit card merchant account. And it's a very easy adoption. And COVID really helped us. Before COVID, the adoption rates for banking only apps were not as big. Today, it's huge. 78% of the people are comfortable doing business on their phones.
Right.
So we decided that we want to go to that direction and then get all of the other products from that direction. So if you're coming in and you can't come across the integration and you're not an expert on some vertically oriented tow truck driver software, you can still open up a bank account. It's still there, right? And so I think that finding that next easy to complement product that's not niche, that's mainstream, is what's important, number one. And to protect your current residual, be able to offer fast money movements to the merchants first before anybody else takes it away from you. I think those are the things that needs to be understood by the agent and the IC community as we go into 2025, in my opinion.
Yeah, the one thing that I think is the thread that ties all of this together in my mind is this idea of intentionality. Like, I feel like, when I was in the payments industry, selling full time in the field 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was, I didn't really think that much about, okay, this next year, right? What's, after my first year, it wasn't like my second year. I was like, all right, what are the big changes? I was like, well, I'm going to go prospect a little bit more. I'm going to hire a couple of people to do appointment setting. Like, that was my big strategic plan. Now just the advice of three of you just gave us, there's all these different avenues. Do we look at banking, right? Are we looking at different methods of payment? Are we looking at ACH? And then it's like, well, what software are we looking at? Are we going to go after a vertical? So I think there's this intentionality, OB, as you look at this and you're seeing this with clients, consulting, and then of course with Wellesley Hills, like, what are you seeing in the industry as a whole as far as how we are or are not adapting to all of this complexity?
That's a really interesting point, James. I'm going to back up a little bit.
Sure.
And as we talk about merchants, their main goal is they don't wake up in the morning and think, wow, I'm looking for a better way to improve my payment acceptance process. They worry about if their clerks came to work, if the cook's in the kitchen, they just want to run their businesses. But small businesses buy all of the products and services that we need to sell to them. And in the past, as an industry, we failed with trying to sell it all at one time. That doesn't work. But Vlad's onto something when he talks about selling banking services, because that's something that every merchant has and every merchant needs. But for us as salespeople, I'm going to go back to my theme. We have to get smarter at who we are and at what we do and how we sell the solutions to merchants. It's pretty easy to walk into a store and sell a surcharging, cash discounting type of solution that just sells itself. But merchants' lives get complicated and they want to reduce their cost and they want to be more efficient at the point of sale. And so we're going to have to get better, probably much more professional at selling than we are today. So I see a change coming in the type of agent that we want to affiliate with and the type of products that we want them to sell. And so we're all used to a one visit sale, maybe a 2-visit sale. I don't believe that's there anymore. I feel like we're going to have to learn how to present an offering of all types of products and then let the merchant buy when he needs to. So a lot to learn on this as we evolve in the next couple of years.
That's a good one. Yeah. So I have one other general question here, and then I have a couple kind of wrap up like broader things. But the other trend I want to talk about, which again, kind of the elephant in the room, is these, and we've already touched on it, but these vertical specific software companies. Vlad mentioned earlier, kind of becoming the new ISO in a lot of ways, which they are. We're seeing them taking a variety of models, while at the same time, they're really not being that successful at payments as a general rule, is what I found from the consulting side and talking to a lot of ISVs. Even the ones that are doing a quote unquote great job at monetizing payments might be selling half of their new mids on payment processing. And they have 4,000 mids that are still in some referral relationship. So my question is really, really simple. And that is, how do we compete with them and or partner with these vertical specific software companies. So, Ben, we'll start with you on the individual agent, right? What should the individual agent, how should they be approaching this trend that obviously I think in 2025, there's going to be a lot of merchants, of agents that are on this, Zoom right now, where they're going to lose a lot of merchants this next year to vertical specific software companies. So what should they do about that?
So you're right about that without question. I think the way to curve that is education. And so if you educate the ISV of what the opportunity is and the support that you can provide as an agent in the market, in whatever community, whether it's literal, a local, literal community, or, maybe you're a trade association of some sort, or you have an in with a trade association and this software is built for that industry. And now you can get them into that association and now you can help them scale. That's where, through that education process and through those relationships, you can cement yourself in the process. Because look, a lot of times these ISVs are great at building software, they're great at building tech. In some cases, they know the industries really well. In other cases, they just see an opportunity and they don't know the industry well. So if you do know the industry well and you can help bring some good thought leaders to the table, there's opportunities there. So it really, to me, it really comes down to nurturing the relationships and educating them on what the opportunity is and the support that can be provided. That's kind of the way we see it. And then from a company perspective, we then help our agents take that product to market and work with their ISV partner, whether that ends up going across the board to all of our agents or just specific, to that one. Every scenario ends up being different, but that's how we've been approaching it. I think it's going to continue to excel at a rapid pace in 2025.
Yeah, it's interesting, Ben. I'm thinking about two agents right now. So I used to know all these agents that sold like 20 to 30 mids a month, like consistently, prospecting leads out in the field. I don't know very many anymore. I know just a couple. And what's interesting is I'm thinking of two agents right now who I've talked to in the last couple of weeks that are doing that 20 to 30 a month, individual agents, right? Doing 20 to 30 a month. Both of them, they have ISVs that are just funneling deals to them. That's how they're doing it. And what I find so interesting about this is these are individual agents. And I think there's a misconception that the term ISV means a software company with 500 employees. There are lots of ISVs that have like 4 people that are working on this, and they would be happy to do payments to this one individual agent. So you got to do some legwork, right, to find those deals, but those are there, right? Those deals are there.
Without question. And you almost become, not to minimize the role of the agent, just to be clear, but you almost become like their admin, right? You become their expert in payments. That's their payments division, right? And to your point, those deals just come in. They're already sold. They're already going forward. You may help them with the integration, whatever gateway they're going to use and whatever configuration is going to be set up front. You probably are going to help them with that so that all of that's really seamless. But then from there, you're their payments division. And I agree with you fully. I mean, it is doable to hit that number of mids. It's just a matter of developing that relationship and really supporting the ISV, not just kind of viewing them as a competitor, but view them as an opportunity, as a partner to work together and bring them something they typically don't have. They just don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to know payments and be able to execute it well and handle chargebacks and what's PCI and, just the nature of payments. That's not their core competency. So that's where, as an agent that knows the business, you can help a ton.
Yeah. So Ben Griefer, as you think about this with the ISO who has all these agents, right? This is a challenge, you know what I mean? Because what does this look like? Does the ISO do the ISV deal? Do they then try to leverage their sales network as well? Do they empower their agents to find ISV? So what are you seeing from the ISO perspective that's like, what's working? What do they need to know about this kind of vertical specific software kind of trend as we move forward in 2025?
Yeah, so generally speaking, I think there's a lot of partnership opportunities with the ISV market. To your point, there is a big misconception. People think ISVs are these monstrous technology companies. A lot of them don't realize they're startups. They're looking for ways to diversify, add, different lines of revenue, add stickiness. And we've seen a lot where they're smaller organizations. They want, an ISO they can kind of either lean on, send referrals to. We've even seen scenarios where ISOs will bring them on as like a white labeled sub agent. So there's a lot of opportunity where these ISVs, want to stay kind of laser focused on their core offering, their platform. They don't obviously want to turn away the payments business, but I don't think they want it to be a distraction to them. And I think that's where there's a lot of opportunities on the ISO side. like Ben said, there's also complexities with payments, pricing, PCI, onboarding, chargebacks, fraud, everything like that. And there's a learning curve. ISVs would take years to really know how to sell payments. So if they can leverage an ISV or an ISO and go to their, merchant base with that expertise, that's where I think there's really good partnership opportunities. On the flip side, we've seen ISOs leverage an ISV's offering, take that to their agent base as a value add, and then now the ISV is picking up kind of some reciprocal business. What's also been interesting is we've seen much larger ISVs go full bore, like PayFac. They didn't realize how much, they're taking on from a risk perspective,
Yep.
take losses, deal with fraud, things like that. And they want to scale it back and kind of sit in this middle spot where they can monetize payments. It's under their brand, but it's very low maintenance for them because they don't want to distract them away from their kind of core service offering.
Hmm. Vlad, I love this, and this is so interesting. Ben brings up so many good points here, and I know that you've had a lot of success going after these ISVs from a kind of your organization, shifting gears a little bit in that direction. I before I get your responses, Vlad, I have to tell you, I had a very interesting kind of deja vu conversation a few days ago with an ISV, and this CEO of the company says to me, she said, I probably get 2 or 3 calls or emails a week from a company asking to do my payments. And it was this crazy deja vu moment of like, oh my goodness, like we're already there. Like it's like merchants were like 10 years ago, right? You walk in and they're like, oh, you're the third person this week. And I'm like, wow, like the ISVs are already at that point now, especially these medium-sized ones and whatnot. So Vlad, what is happening in this ISV market, and what should organizations like, Netevia, what should other organizations that size, what should they be doing if they really want to go after these ISVs?
So first of all, focus, right? You can't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to go into the ISO business. You have to have a very solid go-to-market strategy. And I'm a big believer that every company has its own DNA for doing so.
Right.
And my favorite phrase was in a conversation with the large ISV that told me a very interesting thing. It's an ISV in the restaurant space, and he said, we had a friendly lunch, and he goes, "Look, Vlad, you are your DNA is payments. My DNA is software. I do that better than payments. I need you to be able to make my revenue targets for my investors because that's what they're asking me to do all day long.
Right.
You need me because once I'm in, you're not getting that merchant.
Right.
So I'm a big believer that companies that are trying to become all of a sudden restaurant companies, if it's not in their software companies, if it's not in their DNA, they shouldn't go there. That's to start with.
Right.
If it is within their DNA, then they would have to revamp their entire company and make it a full-blown separate channel business for doing that. People that I can tell you that successfully has done it, I would say Spot On did it very well.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Shift4 is doing it well. I would say that companies like North are doing somewhat of an average job. But one thing about North that they realized long ago, they're a better payment company than their POS company, for argument's sake, right? So they kind of provided a mix of both with a wide range to both. They have the division that makes their money through the Micros dealership that they own, and at the same time they have an agent business, and they say they're what is it, Pay Now a product or
Pay Anywhere.
their terminal Pay Anywhere product, right?
Right.
And so this is an example of a company really understanding their strong points within each individual vertical and growing horizontally, but catering specifically to a specific subset of their clients. And their client is not the merchant. Their client is whatever they're catering to. So whether it's an agent, an ISO, or an ISV, they kind of really successfully diversified themselves into a number of categories. And I would say First Data did the same thing. So those are good examples. A bad example on Fiserv against level is probably Global. This is a company with no identity today. They bought a bunch of assets, and they don't know what to do with them. And so it's amazing that some people can aggregate and buy companies and be successful with it, and no matter how much money you have, if your DNA is different, you shouldn't be doing this because you're not going to do a good job doing it.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. OB, what are your thoughts on this? I know you're seeing this everywhere, the vertical software companies coming in and kind of, a lot of people say software is eating payments, that concept. What do you think, OB?
Look, if I were on the stage, I'd just drop the mic right now, because I think that Ben and Vlad, all brought up very good points. To me, James, it's an unwritten chapter, that we're going to see play out. I just saw where Canada is going to regulate PayFacs now, and so we're seeing a lot of ISVs become payment facilitators, and they're struggling with PCI, with audits, with all of the complexities of sales. So, we still have a lot to learn on this, but it takes me back to that one point. If we become better at selling products, so I look at a guy on the West Coast, Jeff Broadley. I don't know if you know him. He owns a company called the 100 Group, but he specializes in car services, specializes in pet stores. He's got an agenda that is organized, and he serves large markets. You look at Austin McNabb, and he brings, big town services to small town USA. And offering products and solutions. It brings me back to the point that I've said in my other two comments, is we're going to have to be smarter and more professional and better salespeople, because the sales are becoming more complex, longer in nature. And if we don't adapt, then we will lose out. And this industry is too good not to adapt and to continue to win.
So as we close out this part of the conversation, I want to mix it up a little bit. I had a question, but I'm going to change it because, as I'm thinking about what everybody has said so far, I think that I'm trying to find the threads that kind of tie this all together. And one of the big threads I think here is partnership. So, in the past, it was like, well, my partner is like, I'm an agent and I have an ISO. I'm an ISO and I have my super ISO, and that's partnership, right? Now, today, very different. We have to think about partnership, I think, differently all across the board. How do we partner? Who do we partner with? What is the role for the different players? If I'm an agent, what's my role versus the role of the point of sale company or the ISO or the super ISO or the ISV that I'm trying to partner with? And so I'm going to switch the order. So OB, we're actually going to go right back to you. And my question to you is, as these agents are starting to sell smarter and all that, that's only going to go so far if they have the wrong partnerships and they don't have the right things to offer and they don't have the right value proposition and all that. So how do I, in the industry, whether I'm an agent, an ISO, what is your general advice, OB, for establishing strong partnerships and really making those partnerships work strategically over the long haul?
Well, this may be insulting to some, James, so I'll try not to be, in this comment, but I watch a lot of agents and a lot of small ISOs think they're the supreme negotiators, and they will spend a half a day trying to save $10 on buying a terminal, or they're not focused on serving their customers the way they should.
Right.
And so I really believe you pick a partner or maybe two partners and you stay with them. And that allows you to get very good at what you're doing and to become an expert and yourself a trusted supplier, a trusted advisor to the merchants. So Vlad said it, and the word's always important: focus. Focus on a small path and be good in that path.
Vlad, let's go to you next. So from a large organization perspective, you have I don't even know, I'm sure dozens, if not 100 or more different partners, vendors, technology companies, et cetera, right? How do you think about partnership, Vlad? How do you establish successful partnerships as a large organization that are going to be effective long term?
So I find myself a lot in the matchmaking role these
Yeah.
days. Um, so uh, I'm a matchmaker along the way that being a partner, and I would talk a lot about our DNA or DNA of a company. I definitely know the DNA of Netevia today, um, and we are. I don't want to say very selective. It's a wrong word, but we're selective to make sure that people that are joining our businesses and the companies and the partnerships that we have with certain um, ISOs and ISVs are fitting the DNA of the business that we could serve them well. And people that are not, we just I'm at a point in my life where I don't have to do business with them. I'm not looking to become the next Fiserv. That takes much more money than I have currently. Uh, and it's a comfortable to know that we can do a lot, but we can also be nimble enough to listen. So uh, it's really about understanding whether our current models, and we run close to, I want to say, 7 that people know of, and probably another 10 models in the works. And during my tenure with with other companies in the industry, when I was my first ISO, then employed as an executive for a long time, um, I've seen every possible scenario, from sales over the phone to internet sales to feet on the street to POS sales only to vertically oriented ISVs. You name it, I've seen it, done it, and know the metrics around it. And so it is very, very important that when we talk to an ISO, we understand what they're doing and what they're doing for their agents so that we can understand what their business is and give them just the piece that we think we're going to be good at and not take the piece that we don't think it's going to be good. And that's the philosophy of partnership that we have. At the same token, when we have it's less on the ISO side, more on the agent side. But I find a lot of people, because on the agent side they're so desperate to make their ends meet, honestly, they end up getting 5, 6, 7 different revenue streams from different ISOs, and they can never find that one ISO that they're satisfied with. And the reason why they're not finding the ISO that they're satisfied with, because if you're looking at surrounding areas and you're a regular sales rep, you're basically looking to say, okay, I'm going to sign 10 businesses around my 5-mile radius. You're not thinking of saying, okay, you know what? I'm going to go find myself an ISV partner, and I'm going to sit at home like OB sits right now, and just get a lead and enjoy it, and then now you're covering the entire country,
Right.
and it doesn't matter whether you're making 50% or 60% of the income or 15% of the income, and the ISV is making the money, and your processor partner that is now servicing that ISV, because you're really a middleman in the whole process, talking about the role, is making it. But now you have that relationship,
Right.
and then you're getting the merchant by default.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't work on that solution, and it's true for ISO, that is a 3-5 man shop. It's true for an agent, and it's true for some of the larger ISOs that don't cultivate that type of a structure to their downline agents and to their smaller partners that they're partnered with, right? So when we come in and I have this conversation with, let's say, an ISO that does 300, 400 deals a month, and they come in and say, well, Vlad, we want to partner. I said, what do you want to partner on?
Right.
And we really go down deep in it, because the important part about it is that we want to build not only the portfolios of any kind just because it's residual revenue. We want to build a very focused portfolio.
Yeah.
Recently, I've talked to some high risk guys. That's also vertical, right? and the guy's got 39 revenue streams. How do you build a business with 39 revenue streams?
Right.
Like what value represent? You make a lot of cash flow probably,
Right.
and you're trying to fit the needs of your clients and merchants, but that just shows you that you're too
Yeah.
lazy to focus and make 3 revenue streams that are really going to make your portfolio stand out. That
Right.
at the end of the day, you will get to some sort of an exit strategy versus trying to be a cash flow business. And I
Yeah.
think that's another part of the important part is that, yeah, and I think OB will tell that story more than me because he probably seen more of it. But whenever companies offer us, different portfolios for acquisitions, we try to shy away from it. The reason is because we come into a place and we go, well, 7 different portfolios that I have to maintain after I buy it,
Right.
and establish relationships with people I don't really want to establish with, and now I have to have extra effort to maintain those relationships. That's another problem.
Yeah.
And people don't think about it because they're too busy building the cash flow.
Right.
So I think those are the important factors that people don't account for.
Yeah.
And when I started Netevia a couple of years ago, it was always my number one thing. I actually always had 1 or 2 processors, no matter what stage I was. It took me a little bit of time to find it, but I never had 39 revenue streams.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I love this. So Ben Griefer, let's go to you. So the ISO, they have this challenge now. They've got to find the right partners, and they have to negotiate these things and they have to make it all piece it together and everything. They have vendor relationships with technology companies. They have agent partners. How are they, or how should they be navigating these partnerships?
Yeah. And, with ISOs, especially to Vlad's point, we've seen, ISOs that have a tremendous amount, way too many partners, because again, they're constantly, I think, trying to say yes, and
Right.
they don't realize how much time, they're probably wasting, just constantly chasing these different solutions out there. So, I think what's important is, the word partnership over vendor, because when you're working with, a processor or an ISO, there's obviously a tremendous amount of value that the residual could generate, and you want to make sure who you're working with you really align with from a culture perspective, long-term strategy perspective. And there's a lot of horror stories out there with ISOs where they were working with a processor who sold, and overnight there's rate increases and they have a lot of attrition and things like that. So what we're constantly seeing is, really quality over quantity. Get really laser focused, kind of stay in your lane and make sure you develop a really personal, long kind of standing relationship. Don't just pick up vendors because they're the cheapest or they have the lower cost. It will for sure bite you down the road. And you're going to end up spending a lot of time and effort, trying to recover from that. And I think just, the whole trend of our industry changing to kind of this solution-based sales process is where people are going to really realize, time is important, and you want to make sure you're aligning with other companies and partnering with other companies that supplement what you're doing. They have the same kind of fit, vision, etc., so that you can put your head down, stay in your lane, and really build something long term and benefit from that residual income.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think when you're confronted with complexity, I think the natural inclination for most people is to kind of scatter their efforts a little bit. Like, oh, like 7 of those 30 new things look really cool. I'm going to go after all 7. When in fact, usually the most effective thing is to narrow your focus even further because there's so much complexity. You want to stand out by providing something that's well thought out, that's strategic. So here's what we're going to do. So Ben Ross, I want to give you a chance to answer this question, which is so important for the agents, right? How they structure partnerships, maybe even share some things that they're doing wrong. I know you see this a lot as well. And then after that, OB, I'm going to ask you to close us out with just kind of whatever you think we missed that you look at as the most important trend that our audience should be focused on in 2025. So Ben Ross, let's go to you. How should agents be structuring partnerships, and maybe how should they not be as well?
Yep, no, it's fair. I think everyone hit on it, but even at the agent level, you do need to be focused. Have, maybe it's 2 or 3 different partners, whether those are software solutions or even ISOs where you board the business too, and focus in there. Become the best at those softwares. As an example, Union, which is a
Oh, I think we lost him a little bit there.
you've probably seen, um, you know,
No, we're good
sorry,
now.
Union, which is sorry about that. Union, which is a venue operating system that we offer to our agents. We were the #1 ISO across the country. But a lot of that's because at our level and to our agents, we focus on it and we ensure that they understand how to sell it and how to go about it. So I think figuring out the right partners and figuring out what they're bringing to you and being reasonable in what you're looking for is really the most important thing. And then being able to know you've got that support behind you to help go and scale and identify what the goal is you want to get to, make sure that those goals are aligned, and then go get after it.
I love it. So, OB, before we go to you, I have one thing that I just want to say kind of my own kind of 2 cents on this that I think is so crucial. And that is, I think our industry, in particular the ISOs and agents, we need to be very careful where we have put our constraints and where we believe, this is what's not going to change about our industry. Because I think for a lot of us, we can get locked into old business models. We can get locked into old constraints, and it's like, well, I'll work with any partner as long as I get a 90% split. Well, you just wiped out. You're never going to get an ISV. You just wiped out a lot of opportunity, right? And so, right. And as we just think about a lot of things like that, where we say, well, I'll work with anybody as long as they fit into my little tiny box. Maybe this is the year going into 2025. Maybe open your box a little bit and say, well, hold on, let me be more strategic and reconsider how I construct my little box, because we do need constraints, as we've talked about. We don't want to chase everything, but at the same time, maybe we're missing opportunities if we have constrained ourselves a little too tightly to an old way of doing business. Might be time going into 2025 to say, how has the market shifted, and is my way of doing business still reasonable? Am I missing opportunity? Should I be focusing on something else? So that's my 2 cents. OB, close us out with giving us whatever advice you have in these last few minutes going into 2025.
Work hard and save your money. That's always number one. But literally in our space, I think that if we help our customers stay in business longer, then we stay in business longer. And so you do that by being reputable, you do that by being focused, and you do that by being fair. I think the space is going to get more difficult, to sell in. And I think we'll navigate through that. But again, we have to be better, we have to be smarter, and we have to be more professional. And I think everybody on the show has said that today. Focus, pick good partners. Have a couple, have 3, and then go forth. And I think we also have to be good people in this role, James. You've heard me say this before.
Mm-hmm.
I've watched some of the forums and some of the chat rooms that are out there, and it's sometimes about how can we help ourselves instead of helping our merchants. You mentioned a 90% split. 90% of what? Suppose you learn how to sell a really good B2B solution at a 50% split, and you end up keeping a merchant on the books for 3, 4, 5 years, paying residuals to you.
Right.
So think long term, think more strategically, and go sell something. That's what we do. We sell something every day. Thank you, James.
I love it. Hey, well, we're going to end it there. We didn't do Q&A today. We'll do another one, I'm sure, down the road and do more Q&A, but there was just so much that I wanted to cover. I hope that all of you on here got some value, and those listening to the recording, hope you get some value going into 2025. Vlad, Ben, and OB, thank you all so much for your time, for sharing your insights with the industry. Really appreciate all of you, and wish everybody a very successful 2025 as you kind of go through this holiday season and start to plan for the next year. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, James. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.